I can tell you just now, I don't have the secret. So I will take you along a journey that has taken us 4 years to reach a very specific moment in time now. But before I go and do that, I have to celebrate something. This is the 3rd produce show I'm attending this year. I've attended the London Produce Show, I've attended the Amsterdam Produce Show, and now I've been invited and I'm attending the New York Produce Show. And when you register yourself, you get always these nice slips. More or less, I kind of expected a grand slam on this, or a golden slam. But nevertheless, I'm happy to be here and share some thoughts with you. Who are we? Most of you are probably familiar. Let me see. Most of you are familiar with the PMA, the Produce Marketing Association. We are more or less a similar kind of organization in the Netherlands. We're an association of about 370 members, taking care of the interests of the fresh produce supply chain. In our membership, you find the core of the membership is producers' organizations and importers, exporters, but we now are growing as an association with breeding companies taking part of it, but also retailers taking part of it, and all kinds of members that are associated with the supply chain. We'd like to be a source of knowledge and inspiration. I hope the presentation I give will also be the same for you. We are focusing on different themes. That's the food safety, market issues, a lot of globalization. You see, the Netherlands is more or less a roundabout for fresh produce. We don't only produce, but we also import from over 100 different countries. And that poses all kinds of market access issues. But we also export to a lot of different countries. And again, market access plays a different important role there. But also market intelligence, what's happening in and around the world. We collect a lot of data. We make dashboards with the Agricultural Economic Institute in the Netherlands. So people can see how they could develop in the market, in a specific part of the market, where they can source, where they can start new productions. That's one of our laws. Labor is also very important for us. There are trade unions in the Netherlands. We have to negotiate with them. Logistics and IT, especially the last mile logistics now becoming more and more important. We're dealing with the common agricultural policy in the EU. And of course, what I'm talking about today is the nutrition and health theme. But before I do that, perhaps not everybody knows where the Netherlands is. Here you see Europe. Can you see the Netherlands? Let me help you a little bit. There it is. It's really a very small country. Although we are mentioned quite often in the fresh produce industry, it's still a very small country. If you look at the relative position of the Netherlands in the EU, you see how we rank on surface number 23. There are 27 member states, so we are right at the bottom. But on inhabitants, and it's quite crowded here, also here in New York, I found out on the roads, we are number 8. Our GNP, we punch a little bit above our weight. We are number 7, but on vegetable production, we get very high yields, about 5 or 6 times higher as most other countries. We can reach the rank of number 4. But in vegetable trade, we are really number 1. Although we are not number 1 in consumption, but I get to that a little bit later. A little bit more about the Dutch, because when Jim asked me to tell you something, I said, I'd like to talk to you about the Dutch approach. And what is a Dutch approach? And I have to start with this. There, the Netherlands again. Do you recognize this picture? If the Netherlands wasn't protected by what we call dikes, I know the American word for dike means something different, but to protect ourselves against the water, it is an English word. It's used also in in the UK. This is what Netherlands would look like without it. So the biggest invention we had was this. And we put it even around, sometimes around farms. So that's the essence of the Netherlands. We are working in St. Louis, Louisiana, the south here in the US, because these are waterworks we created after a big flood in 1953. This is a great story about the Netherlands. There's a famous guy who put a finger in the dike when the water came through. We don't wear clogs because they float. We just have a lot of willows, and these were the clogs, the wooden shoes we were using in many years ago, but you probably know the Netherlands by this picture. But especially the second one is very important. We had not a big history in nobility. The reason for that was if you want to hold a big piece of land, you needed the cooperation of other civilians. So we are a country that always needs to work together. You can't do things on your own. So we have compromises, and in your description of my presentation it says we have 16 different political parties. And still we have a government. That can only be achieved when people sit together and work together. That's, I found is something special, especially when I go abroad. If I'm talking to the Germans, they always say, what you are achieving in the Netherlands, we never going to achieve, because we can't get the people around the table. So that is more or less the Dutch approach. If I'm looking at the nutrition and health theme, we chose to, as an organization, to have the role of the accelerator. What we did, we set out a strategy when we started this about 4 years ago. How can we get consumption on the rise? How to move the needle on consumption? We said what we needed is research on consumer behavior. Strangely enough, the guys we're fighting, the sugar drinks, the Coca-Colas and so on, the Procter & Gamble, they all know a lot about consumer behavior. We as a fresh produce industry hardly do any research about consumer behavior. So we started a multi-annual project with the Wageningen University on consumer behavior to know a little bit more. We wanted to have fresh produce on the top of mind of all the stakeholders, the media, the television, the government, you name it, we want to have fruit and veg on the top of their mind, and they want to. We wanted to mobilize civil society. But we see that NGOs in environmental areas also were interested in having more vegetables on the table because of the sustainability it brings. We wanted to increase insight in the possibility of the fresh produce. We created 2 think tanks. I'll come to that a little bit later, about increasing consumption. How can people from different angles in the society work together on the same issue, how to increase the vegetable consumption on the whole. We did a think tank with family doctors, very interesting. We called the report Fewer Pills, More Produce. And we are looking at the developments in consumption, and I will come to that now. Here you see on the right-hand side, you see what we call the wheel of nutrition. That's a typical way of, in the Netherlands to show people how their diet should be composed. Now, the green bit, it's us. We're the biggest part, but although there's a lot of communication going on, and I also have seen it here in the States as well, but everywhere where I come, there's a lot of talk about vegetables, but it's not going so well as most people seem to assume. It's not about, when you talk about it, you don't eat it. The recommended intake in the Netherlands, and in some countries it's a little bit higher, it's 250 grams of fresh vegetables per person per day. I'm talking about vegetables more than about fruit, because the big problem sticks with are the vegetables. But the present intake is around half of it. So we moved from 200 grams to 250 grams just a year ago, and so people aren't eating enough, it's only 50%. I have to make something clear. What is part of the green section? In the hype about vegetables, you see people moving away from meat. So you see something coming in the shops like vegetable burgers. They're not part of the green side. They don't count, as simple as that. It's the same with vegetable crisps. It's an alternative to just potato crisps, but they're still rubbish. It's salt, fat, it's not vegetables at all. Vegetable smoothies? No, they're out. Easy, but they don't have the content and the health effect of the ordinary vegetables. So we're really talking about fresh vegetables as a whole. Now, we asked a big marketing company to research the development of the vegetable consumption over the last 7 years. In 2008, the financial crisis started. Lehman Brothers fell, I believe, in 2009. There were a lot of austerity measures going on in the country, so things happened. And what happened to the vegetable consumption? You see that there's a little increase over the last 7 years in turnover, so in value. But there's quite a strong decrease in volume. If you put it on, you see it for vegetables, it's minus 4%, but even for the volume of fruit, it's down with 7%. What's behind this? We showed this in a presentation with the supermarkets, with the retailers. And they were really surprised because they saw an increase in value all the time. And I will show you why. And they were very happy. They said, it's really going well, but the volume is going down. And if we want to improve the public health, you need to talk about grams and not about value. This is what happened. What you see here on your left is the total consumption of vegetables in the Netherlands. And next to it the middle is the supermarket supply chain, and the other ones is the non-supermarket supply chain. From the top to the bottom, you see the number of buyers. So the research that is included contains a lot of the total population, the number of visits, and the average buy per visit. So the average is kilogram per buyer in total. What you can see is that especially the buyer has bought less the last 7 years. That's the main cause of it. But when you move to the right-hand side, you see something very strange is happening. In the US, probably the retail markets are the most prominent suppliers of fruit and vegetables. In the Netherlands, there was a good supply of fruit and vegetables outside, through fresh markets, marketplaces in town, just day markets. But also, we had special vegetable shops, specialized shops. There are around 1,200 of them. They're all gone. There are only 300 left. So there was a lot of loss of fruit and veg through this channel, and that moved to the supermarket. And you see in the middle that the supermarkets grew by 1.7%. So everybody was happy. And you can even see when you look at fruits, the same pattern happens, but even more pronounced. Again, the supermarket is the biggest winner, but in total, the total consumption of fruit and veg is going down. The next slide I'm going to show you, you have to look at the horizontal axis. There you see the way we live together as families, as singles, as retired people with high and with low income. And you see what they buy in those different households in kilograms per buyer. There you see what happened the last 5-6 years, that especially families with children did buy enough vegetables. There was a strong decrease in buying from these specific type of families. The reason behind it, we haven't researched it, but it is assumed that this is price, because high energy foods are cheaper than low energy foods, so people move away from fresh produce to, when money is tight, people move away from fresh produce to the high energy foods. Here you see the same. Just show you this one. If you look at the left, next to the blue one, you see the singles. This is a growing group within our society, single people. And you see they are the lightest buyers at all. So if this group is growing, we probably will be seeing more problems with the sale of vegetables. It's even more pronounced in fruits. But again, you see the family with children buying less and less the last couple of years. So the households have are a discriminatory factor in the way you buy fruits and veg. If you look at where people live, it's even more pronounced. Here you see a couple of graphs, and you see on the left hand above, I'm not able to point, am I? You see different districts. On top it says the major cities are Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Utrecht in the Netherlands, and they are District 1. You see the lowest volume is bought in the cities. If you see, look, the west part of the country in the Netherlands is quite rich. The north and the south are the poorest parts in the country. You see a stronger relation with buying power and with lifestyle. Here you see, I will make the presentation available, you can see it all afterwards, where the strongest effects are. And then we came to a very surprising find. I didn't know about it, but it is shown on the next slide. Here you see, and I think I can put this next to it. I hope you all can follow it at the moment. You see, we divided the groups of buyers into three different groups: the light, the medium, and the heavy buyers. I will come to that in the next picture. But what you see, around 50% of the customers are belonging to the light buyers group, and they only buy just over 20% of the total volume of vegetables. Here you see what is the difference between the groups. On the right-hand side, you see the light buyer buying only 29 kilograms of vegetables per year, whereas the heavy buyer is buying almost 150 kilograms per year. It's probably not all consumed because there's a lot of food waste, but there is a difference between the light and the heavy buyers of 5 times the intake of vegetables. Now, this is a very strong difference. You see the same happening with the fruits. But what you can also see here on the right-hand side, that the last couple of years, especially the light buyers, are buying less. So they take up the biggest share of the total population of buyers, but are reacting quite strongly on the last couple of years. What are the reasons behind it? I already mentioned the price is probably one of them. But what we especially see is that there's a strong lifestyle connection. There's the urban environment. People are eating more often for shorter periods and everywhere. And we've been walking around New York the last couple of days, and it's 100% true. You see people walking and eating almost anywhere, in elevators, on the streets, in taxis, in shops, even if they try on clothes, they put something on a little table, and so everybody is eating almost everywhere. That means that there are great possibilities for the out-of-home use of produce. But the biggest barrier we found was that people see fresh produce as a bit of a hassle. There's always work to do, you're always left with something that you don't want to eat, so you have to throw something away. It's a bit of a, we don't have the solutions. I think Jim already mentioned that in his opening statement. Looking at the food market, you can already see on the total turnover of food is 57 billion euros in the Netherlands. But you can see that 30% is going through the food service channel. This picture doesn't show it exactly, but we made calculation that instead of, what you would like to see is that the distribution of fruit and veg over these two different blocks is more or less the same. That isn't true. What we've calculated that around 10% of the vegetables are sold through this channel. So the market share of the retail is over 90%, and most of the fruit and vegetables are still used at home. Only 10% is used out of home. That is the biggest opportunity for us. Now, if we look at out of home, there is where our research started. In 2015 and 16, we made interventions, the way people and researchers talk, in different places out of home. We looked at daycare centers, we went to high schools, we went to the workplace, and we went to a restaurant. I'm going to explain two of them that showed some nice results. I'm going to skip the daycare centers. It's about offering unfamiliar vegetables. It's very funny, but young children really like vegetables. If they get involved, they consume it. But what we found that the parents compensate for that. If the young children have a veggie meal at the daycare center, they don't get vegetables at home anymore, because there's always a fight going on between the parents and the young children of eating your vegetables, and people like to skip that. So that's next research we're going into. I'm also not going into high school because that's going to be a really tough cookie. Young adolescents are very much into high energy foods, and vegetables don't work miracles there. So I'm looking at the other places. The meeting room. I'm not going to explain the entire experiment, but the research was done at 136 different meetings, and there were over 1,700 people taking part in those meetings. When we put snack vegetables on the table, 20% people started to consume almost 75 grams of snack vegetables. And even when offered cookies next to the healthy option, there was only a small decline in consumption of around 17 grams. So people eat a lot. And even in a quarter of the meetings, people ate more than 100 grams of vegetables. So this came back in an advert, and you probably can't read the word above, so I translated it for you. So there's a new word now in the Netherlands, it's called meeting room vegetables. Options for people to eat vegetables when having a meeting together. This is a really good option, but the supply of those vegetables towards those meeting rooms is still a bit of a problem. So we have a solution, but the solution doesn't function as of yet, because the supply chain isn't designed to those places. Another nice research we did was menu engineering, it's called. We chose a mainstream restaurant in the Netherlands and got the cooperation of 3 different restaurants all over the country. What we try to do, and you see it in the picture on the right hand side, is to measure exactly the amount of vegetables on the plates. For some reason, the last 10, 20 years, the size of meat has grown. People didn't ask for it, but it has grown. So what we wanted to do to find out what is happening if we diminish the amount of meat and increase the amount of vegetables. You can see it on the pictures on your left. And what happened was quite surprising. People are very happy to eat more vegetables when it's presented in an easy way. If you put it next to the plate, they won't eat as much as when you put it on the plate. So what you need is a way of presentation of the plate, such in a way that it looks nice, the meat still fulfills the needs of the consumer, so what he sees as a nice piece of meat. But next to it, if you present the vegetables in the proper way, people simply will eat it. So we've seen an increase of 75 grams per meal without losing any customer satisfaction at all. And there was a little bonus for that. There was less food waste in the restaurants, and there was a higher revenue. It was all over the news in the Netherlands, and especially that we did it secretly. People weren't told about it, so that was more newsworthy than eating more vegetables. So what this research shows, there are options to change the way people are eating. When I was in London last summer, I heard a new word, it was called mindless eating. People are not very focused on what they eat. When they're nudged in the right direction, they will simply do what you expect them to do. So, now about working together. This is one of the think tanks we did. This is a report, it's in Dutch, I can't help it, so you can't find it on our website in English. But it's a way of organizing communication. It's bringing people from very different backgrounds together on one issue. We call this the central question. It's right in the middle. What are the different trends? This map say what are the different trends in fruit and veg consumption. And then you have the different actors in the society, and there are different arguments going on. If you create charts like this, people start talking with each other. We have created about 12 of them in very different forms, and it's nice to see how much energy it gives to people from different backgrounds when they have common discussion around this. This empowered us to create a coalition. If you take a little bit of your time to look at it and see what different groups of people are in this coalition, you probably will be surprised. Of course, the top ones, Fresh Produce Center and the retail, are obvious ones. Government has taken part, but you can see not only the economy, the agriculture side, but also the public health side and also the environmental side. Catering, obvious. Platform for the nutrition of children aged 0 to 4. Environmental NGOs like Greenpeace-like organization. The National Healthcare Foundation for heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease. They all want to be involved in this fruit and veg discussion and action program. Association of City Councils. They're dealing with a lot of poverty and they like to improve the lives of people. Association of School Principals. Program against youth and obesity, and so on and so on. So this discussion brought all these people together. And we've now managed to embark on a nationwide program for the coming 3 years, employing all these people around the table. The aim is to nudge from all different angles in our society, from healthcare side, from the employer side, from retail side, from the catering side, to nudge the consumer, the customer, the patient, the civilian, all in what we like to see as the right direction. And we try to design a collective communication strategy for that. Now, is the question, will it work? I've showed you a lot of figures just a couple of slides ago. I didn't add 2016. I will do that now. Just in short, I won't show you any of the graphs anymore. But what we found that there's now in 2016 a 7.6% increase in value of the fruit and veg sales. But we have also seen now not only a value raise, but also a rise in volume. So at least we are seeing something happening. And it means that the consumer really is reacting to all the new offers and all the communication that's going on, especially on the convenience. One disappointing find that it's all with the heavy buyers. So the heavy buyers are eating already a lot of vegetables, they start eating even more vegetables. So we're still losing the light buyers. And this is my last sheet, Jim, because it shows quite nicely what is really happening. You see the salad is on the rise, whereas the ordinary vegetables that are indeed a lot of hassle are losing their market share. You can see all salad-related tomatoes are on the rise, and especially when you look at the snack tomatoes, it's about 15–16%. But you see the broccoli, although it's very healthy, and the cauliflower are all going down. So this again supports the find that people want to have convenience and need a little bit of help to push them in the right direction. Thank you very much.
We have a couple of questions. We don't have time for much, but we'll take one or two. Now, it's just laid out. A brilliant plan, okay? We have
It was an interesting presentation, and I just wanted to share one observation. We traveled to Holland, of course, in the mushroom industry. I'm Mike Wood with Tojo Mushroom, and they do a great job of growing mushrooms in Holland. That's mushroom heaven over there for us. And interesting, almost 50% of our sales are pre-sliced. But in Europe, it's like less than 5%. And I wonder if the fresh cut industry, do you see that increasing now in Holland and Europe?
I'm sorry to say, I don't have the exact data on mushrooms. What we see is that we've reached in the Netherlands a level of convenience sales of about 40%. That's stable. What we see is it's deepening what you can get in the convenience on the convenience shelf. So there are more products, but the total volume of convenience is stuck to on 40% now. It looks like we're saturated in convenience.
You looked at the the preference for veg, and in some cases the calorie dense foods or the high energy foods, as you say. We see the split in the United States between basically high income people eating more veg. But did you do any research with like total food diaries? When you look at, say, okay, we know the portion of what they eat in fruit and veg, but really what are the other things they're eating? Or is it other plant-based foods? Is it other, a lot of manufactured foods? Are they eating ingredients? Do you really kind of have the whole picture of some of these populations?
There is a whole picture. I haven't got it with me, but this is not our research. We're looking, of course, we're looking at the fruit and veg side. But one thing that is really lacking is that not only what people eat, but when they eat it, and how they eat it, and which combination they eat it. I learned a couple of years ago when I was over in the States, I heard a great talk. Somebody talking about what they mentioned, the mental gap. That people eating high energy foods, we offer them broccoli. So they're eating chips, they're eating a pizza, we offer them straight broccoli or a cauliflower. That's a mental gap. We don't help people in the steps towards a better diet. And we feel that is the new way to go forward as an industry, especially to close the gap between what we offer. And I think Jim also mentioned that people don't recognize our product anymore. It's an ingredient, but they want a solution. They want a meal and they want something that fits what they want at the time where they are. So we have to really find new solutions for that.
Hi, Amy from Waitrose in the UK. I was just wondering, looking at your final slide here and seeing that there's a 17% decline in cauliflower consumption, do you think there's a part to play from the seed breeders developing varieties like a sprouting cauliflower similar to a broccolini to actually try to make products like a cauliflower actually far more sexy?
Yeah, what we've seen is that mini vegetables are playing a bigger role now, but on the entire marketplace they're still very tiny. So there are options there, and if you make it more colorful. We know, for example, now that about 60% of the plates that are served in restaurants is a picture taken off and put on the Instagram. So we have a couple of food service companies now that understood that and are selling vegetables on a color scale, so that a chef can design a plate with the different colors that are there. And that is, especially from the breeder's point of view, that is very interesting, because we've seen that some of the varieties that were never grown because of the yield was too low are now grown because they have a nice color.
Hello, Charlie Dunn here, Chandler and Dunn in the under 40s. We in the UK have one of the highest supermarket standards in fresh produce. And I've always had this argument, it can potentially alienate the poorer communities because it becomes too expensive and through this high standard that we have. So when I was in South Africa, I was very conscious of what little had been wasted in comparison to our UK market. And economically, I'm very aware that South Africa is different, but it seems that the poor communities appreciate and have a better understanding of the benefit of fresh produce, even if it is aesthetically imperfect. Now, up until the 70s, on our family farm, we had 8 grades of apple, 8 different grades. We even had our famous Chandler and Dunn 1 bites that we'd sell wholesale to the schools. Now we have 3 grades. And that kind of coincides at the same time that the supermarkets came into effect, really around the 70s. And do you feel that the retailers need to address this more? Perhaps should we, the poorer communities have some sort of incentive, a kind of a loyalty reward scheme or something like that, which is done through the retailers, an incentive for them to actually buy more fruit and veg.
Yeah. Nice thing, fruit and veg, they earn a lot of money on it. It's around 12% of the total turnover per supermarket is fruit and veg. But if you look at the revenue, it's about 3 times higher. So we, in fact, as fruit and veg industry, are subsidizing the sugar drinks. You have now a sugar tax that gives a little bit of a return for that. But that has to change.
It does.
The prices have to go down, especially the profits of the retailers. I don't know if there are retailers around here, but if you want to be a supermarket that sells health, you have to lower your prices of fruit and veg and increase the margins on your sugary drinks.
It's not only that as well. I think also the retailers need to look at product placement. If you go into the supermarket, you've got one place where the fruit and veg is. But you'll have 3 places where Mars bars are and Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So, you know, they need to look at the way they run things.
If you were talking about nudging, I think Coca-Cola knows exactly what you're talking about. We as a fruit and veg industry need to take that place in the supermarkets. So we need to be at the premium places. I've seen solutions where you combine fruit and veg with other meal solutions, and people are buying it because they are offered a solution at this spot in the supermarkets. I hope we're in for a revolution, because we need the help of everybody in selling our fruit and veg.
Thank you very much.